Kansas City. So smack dab in the middle of the United States, not far from the mythical Smallville where Superman grew up. When I heard that Superman grew up in Kansas, Smallville doesn't really exist in Kansas, but when I heard that as a kid, I was like, because Superman was my favorite, so it was just like, oh my gosh, I could be friends with Superman. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm just a kid, cut me some slack, yeah. But right in the middle, I spent some time in Kansas City, Kansas. Now we live on the Missouri side of Kansas City still. It was, in my really young life, it was just like hand-me-down comics. Like I had older cousins who gave me a big stack of Superman and a big stack of Spider-Man. And then when I got to be about 13, when I started making my own money doing like mowing yards and stuff like that, I started buying ElfQuest. Before that, or around the same time, it was, I'm pointing to Kevin Eastman here off camera, the original Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird Ninja Turtle books, the reprints. I don't have any of the originals, but, and then, so ElfQuest, Ninja Turtles, and then Jim Lee's X-Men. That was around the Extinction Agenda, around issue 272-ish, that time frame. And that's what got me inspired. I mean, these are three very different art styles, if you were to look at them on the table, if we laid them all out, Wendy Penny, which is ElfQuest, Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird for the Ninja Turtles, and then Jim Lee for X-Men. But all three of them just spoke to me, maybe in different accents or dialects, but they all spoke to me in a way that made me feel inspired where I wanted to see if I could do this. I was intimidated by their work, so there were times I felt like I could never get there or something, but just something about it made me want to take it more seriously. I was always drawing before that, but it was just more like, you're just sketching, and I happen to be one of the better artists in the class. That was generally the rule, or the way things went, was I would be the one assigned by the teacher to help her draw something for the class craft or something. But eventually, though, I took it seriously. And then when I was in high school, I met my best friend then named Tyrone Crockett, and he helped to teach me how to draw with shapes. That was the real breakthrough to me, is that you didn't start with a blank page and just draw the perfect eye and the perfect face and the perfect hand with no undersketch. Instead, you built the figure from an abstract, weird blobby thing and then made it more and more clear until it looked finished. And it looked like it was effortless, but it was actually a lot of effort. My earliest memories were of wanting to draw, liking to draw, sometimes staying in from recess to draw He-Man and Superman and stuff, because that staying in to draw was way more fun than going out on the playground or whatever. Who cares about the playground? I've got paper and pencil, All right. It's a tricky question. The first comic I ever drew was in 1997, but it didn't get published until 2000. So by the time it got published, that was like a chasm of difference in my art style and skill level and all that other stuff. So the very first book I ever drew was called Vendetta, not V for Vendetta, but an independent comic book company called Sundragon put out this book called Vendetta. So it came out right after a book called War God. That was the first published thing I ever actually got in print. Then Vendetta was right after that. So it's kind of like a tie between the two. And then for DC Comics, though, it was Seven Soldiers, Mr. Miracle, issue 2. That was the first work I did for DC Comics that saw print. And that was a huge door opening in front of me, a total change of my life, Probably not an issue, but I mean, Batman Ninja Turtles, which I got really super lucky to draw. I emailed my editor just on the exact right day to see if they might need an artist for Batman Ninja Turtles. I just presumed, because I had seen a tweet that Star Trek and Green Lantern was going to be a crossover, and that's IDW so IDW and DC Comics. I knew that was going to be a thing, and I thought, well, they're probably going to do other crossovers between those two companies. And just on a hunch, I thought Ninja Turtles and Batman would be pretty cool, I think. So I sent an email to my editor and asked him, hey, is that happening? And if so, I'd love to be the artist. And he was like, at DC offices, we were joking, you must be psychic, because on that day, they were talking about who might be the artist. And I basically emailed him at exactly the right time. And I never have good timing like that other than when I asked my wife to marry me. So Batman Ninja Turtles, that 18 issues, that was 3 volumes of 6 issues each. That was a series that totally changed my life. I mean, for the best, by the way, for the better. Where it put me into drawing, getting to meet Kevin Eastman, who's one of my all-time heroes and art favorites, and working on much more popular things, plus the weird niche of combining He-Man and the ThunderCats and Godzilla versus Power Rangers and all this stuff that people as kids would play with, your toys, you'd mash them together, but they've just never been an actual crossover comic book other than now. I was the one who got lucky enough to draw it. So super lucky. Yeah, Batman Ninja Turtles was the one that broke me into the new route, the new direction of my career. Yeah. Okay, I don't know how likely it is. Marvel doesn't do a lot of crossovers or whatever, but anybody who's thoroughly read Frank Miller's Daredevil run and then read the original Ninja Turtles, the Eastman Laird Mirage stuff, would see there's similarities that are hinted at each other between Daredevil's origin and the Ninja Turtles' origin. The canister that hits Matt Murdock as a kid in the face that gives him his powers to become Daredevil later could maybe be the same canister, the same type of material that instead went down into the sewer and mutated the Turtles and Splinter and stuff. And then instead of the Daredevil continuity has the Hand, which is a ninja clan, and then Ninja Turtles have the Foot clan. And instead of Master Splinter for the Ninja Turtles, there's Master Stick for Daredevil. So there's other parallel continuity things, that Eastman and Laird did as kind of like an homage to Daredevil and Frank Miller. So I think that would be, other than Batman Ninja Turtles, which was like this big landmark thing, I think the even more landmarkier landmark would be Daredevil and the Ninja Turtles, if we could ever cross those over. That would be the one if it was like, you've got 6 months to live and we're gonna grant you your wish. That would be the one that I'd want to draw. There's plenty others. There was a He-Man Ninja Turtles crossover that was supposed to happen. We got into the development stage of it, and then it got canceled, unfortunately, in early 2020. But I'd love to work on that as well. And there's other ones. Something with Silverhawks, I don't know, something with G.I. Joe. There's a bunch of stuff I'd love to do. Leonardo is for sure my favorite Ninja Turtle. I love the leadership, being the reluctant leader when you're forced in a position of power, but you have no desire to be the leader. He doesn't crave power. He just is put into that responsibility, and that ensures that he's not going to abuse that responsibility. He's quite honorable in that way, and he's kind to his brothers, but Raphael just can't take it. He doesn't want to be under anyone's rule, basically, other than Splinter. So I love that dynamic with him being pushed into the role of leader. Plus it's blue. Blue's my favorite color, the blue bandana. I don't know, that's a pretty basic kid's reason, but I did like that. And then my favorite pizza, you mean like a favorite pizza place or a favorite pizza like toppings type thing?
Let's go pizza and pizza place.
Oh, okay. The favorite one I've ever been to, here in Sydney, Viennanopolis is awesome. We've been to Viennanopolis. We went there a couple of years ago. Some of the locals took us there, John and David and stuff, and we loved it there. But that's like for like the wood fire type pizza. But I also really, really love, I can't remember the name of it, but when we were in Chicago, we had a really thick, deep dish. It was almost like a casserole where it's like this much crust and this much cheese. And the whole time you're eating it, you're like, you can feel your heart like trying harder to process all this, but you can't, I couldn't stop, so those are the two extremes of pizza that I love. Toppings wise, lots and lots of cheese. If it's the wood fire, it's more like, I love just margarita, just lots of basil, lots of olive oil. I'm in for that. Yeah. I never learned to read. No, I'm joking. Yeah. What are words? Let's see. That is a good question. This is what I do. This is the God's honest truth. I buy the artwork. There's favorite artists that I have, and I buy their whole collection. Like anything I can find of them, I buy. And when I'm looking through and studying their styles and studying what it is about them that speaks to me, and how can I either incorporate that or whatever. What is it about it? I'm trying to reverse engineer their formula or something. I read the comics that they have put out. So the stuff I'm reading is probably 20 years old. It's like or maybe even older. Travis Chare's Wildcats. He was an artist, an amazing artist at Wildstorm Studios that he kind of hopscotched around a lot. He's a little bit of a slow artist, but amazing. But they would always like put him on something, and then after 1 or 2 issues, he'd be behind. So they put him on something. They kind of space him out. Anything Mike Mignola, Frank Miller do. Kevin Eastman actually sends me PDFs of the stuff that they're doing right now, so I don't even have to buy those books. I can just read them on my computer. Let me see. Jim Lee. There's a long list. ElfQuest has ended a while ago, so I've read all of that stuff already. So I was reading Invincible for a while, but I actually, even though it's a finite series, I still haven't finished like maybe the last 6 or 7 issues. So that's not a very great answer, but that's where I'm. That's where I'm at. That's the reality.
Yeah, that's cool. So you more about the artwork than the story.
Yeah, and how the artwork. I mean, of course, the words drive the artwork, or they're connected, but I only really read it in the context of, let me figure out if I know exactly what's happening here just from the visuals, and then read it to see if there was anything that was missed out on, or how much weight the art was lifting versus show versus tell versus tell and tell. You know what I mean? Where like in the old comics, like Superman's punching someone and the narration would be like, Superman punched Brainiac. And it's like, you know that, it's pretty obvious. It's really clear what's just happened. And then more modern comics, you try to get like a more abbreviated, less description and stuff where it's more clear in the actions and stuff. So that's usually what I read it for, is to see how clear their actions are in the visuals. Yeah. So right now I'm working on a couple crossovers. So there's one that's like a short run. There's ones that I can't really talk about much. So there's one that's a couple of mini standalone things. And then there's one that I'm supposed to be working on that's a sequel to one of the other crossovers I've already done. So it'll be like a volume 2 of that. That's generic enough that I won't get in trouble because I've signed contracts with all these people. Cover-wise and stuff, I've done for Last Ronin 2, I did a 5-part interconnecting cover. I did 5 pages for Last Ronin, The Lost Day with Kevin Eastman, where I did the pencils and he did the finishes, which is, I mean, it's Kevin Eastman. That's it's very legendary. He's a legendary guy, so I'm honored to get to work with him on that. We just did a series of Ninja Turtle and Power Ranger cover where I did the pencils and he and Kevin Eastman did the finishes on it. And I'm trying to think of what else. I just did a couple of Ninja Turtle covers, a Last Ronin cover. It's just like, basically the project I was supposed to work on got put on hold. So they were like, let's just keep you fed with a bunch of covers. So I was working on a lot of that. So nothing easy to describe, but that's where I'm at right now. So.